Imagine spending your weekend sitting in a visitor's room in prison with 3 small children while other families are enjoying barbecues in the park, and then being forced to move in with your parents because you can't afford a roof over your head. Well, this is the reality for some women whose husbands have been jailed.
But there is a unique program available in Australia called Kairos, which helps families overcome the shame associated with having someone on the inside. Joining us this morning is Rachel, who has spent many a Saturday morning with the children, visiting her husband, their father, in a prison visitor centre. We also welcome Ian Pavletich from Kairos.
Good morning to you both.
Good morning.
Now, Rachel, the day that you found out that your husband was going to jail, what was that moment like?
I actually can't remember much. I think I just blocked it out. I was in so much shock and I think I was numb for a very long time. I remember just kind of shutting down. It was, I know that my children were staying at a friend's house and somebody brought them back the day after, but I don't even remember how we told them. I don't remember if I told them or if somebody else did. So,
because they were quite little at that stage.
They were very young. I had a 3.5-year-old, a 2-year-old and a 4-month-old.
But still, I mean,
wow.
So Daddy's going away for a couple of years.
Yep.
God, what do you say? I mean, and it's not just the children, is it? You've got to tell the extended family.
Family, friends, yeah.
Wow.
It was very difficult.
How did you? I don't even begin to. I'm not even quite sure how to start this. But where did you begin? Because you had to move out of your house.
Yeah, we were living with my parents at the time. We had to move in during the court process. So I had that support.
No money would be coming in.
No,
right.
no. So I did have the support of family and friends, which was, I think, made a big difference for me. But yeah, just. I think having the 3 children helped me to keep going because I had to get up in the morning. I couldn't just stay in bed like I wanted to. I couldn't pretend the world was just not happening like I wanted to. I had to get up and look after the children and care for them.
Well, Ian, this story isn't unusual, is it?
No, it's in fact, Rachel's story is slightly unusual because they've stayed together as a family and have grown.
Rare. Yes.
And that's not the usual case. Because what we find with Kairos, and we're right around Australia and all over the world, is that often the families do break up, and the families that are left when someone goes inside are often what we call the forgotten victims, because they're gone, they're isolated, they don't know, there's not enough sort of support mechanisms for them, and Kairos works with people inside as well as with people outside to try and bring resolution to some of this, to say that, for the people inside, that you have a choice, that you don't have to keep going on the cycle you may be on or that may have caused this situation. And Kairos outside is to say, hey, you're not alone. There are people who will help, there are people who will support you. You don't have to try and do this on your own.
Rachel, did you seek out Kairos?
My mum did for me, actually. She found out about it and I'm very thankful for her. She was able to come away on the weekend with me as my support person, and for me, looking after the children was all I could cope with at that time. So when I went to the weekend away with Kairos, it just gave me a safe place to start to cope and deal with things like the shame I was feeling, the embarrassment. I was angry at my husband. He'd left me at home, but I was also scared for him. I had no idea what he was going through.
Let's just backtrack a bit and talk about the program. Perhaps you can pick it up here, Ian.
Sure.
Rachel talked about the weekend away. Tell us what's involved.
Basically, the guests who are the women who've been affected by having someone in prison, whether they be husbands, mothers, children or whatever, are invited away for a special weekend. And they're basically, it's 3.5 days where they're taken in, they're treated specially, they are treated like princesses, I would say, in some ways, because that way they're said, hey, you are special, you are not alone, there is support. And they're given a series of talks along the way by team members, often who have been ex-guests themselves, who are coming back to tell their story. And so part of the talk is talking about choices and what can you do about it in life, but also it's the sharing of the personal testimony, where all of a sudden the women realise that, hey, they've been there, they've done that.
Yeah. Other people feeling the way I do. Yeah.
I do, and that in itself, and then the ongoing small groups and the reunions give them a sort of sense of community, support network, and that's the sort of the outside version of what happens inside.
Yeah. It must be extraordinary to be taking your children to visit your husband in jail.
It was horrific, yeah. It was really hard. I mean, there was that I really wanted to see my husband and be with him, but keeping 3 small energetic children quiet
Impossible.
and,
Yeah.
you know, there are guards everywhere and there's a whole, you know, process of getting into a visit centre. It was really difficult.
So by the time you're in, you're a complete wreck.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you think that this would end your marriage?
For me, my marriage was very important and it wasn't easy, but it was just so important. I didn't want to lose my marriage or my husband. He was my best friend and is today.
So you didn't at any stage say, this is just too hard, I just can't do this, I want to get out? Because I imagine that's what happens to a lot of women in your situation.
Absolutely, yeah. I think for me it was just really important. My marriage was really important. My children were very important. So whatever work it took to do that, to maintain a marriage while you're separated and yeah, I did experience a lot of anxiety and depression and things like that. But
I guess too, it's ongoing and it stays with you every progress you go through, every process you go through.
Yeah.
Your children obviously
Yeah.
would have, during that time,
yes.
had to go to school.
Yes, my eldest, started school during that time, and that was so difficult for me. I had just isolated myself because I didn't want to talk to people. What do you say, you know, when somebody says, "Oh, what does your husband do?"
Yeah.
He's in prison. Like,
Yeah.
who can I trust to tell this to? How are they going to react
And
to
what,
me?
how did
But
you,
unfortunately,
how did
kids
your
are kids.
How did
Yes.
your kids respond?
Oh, it's there are some very funny stories. I know that my daughter used to share it for news.
Like show and tell.
Show and tell. Daddy's in prison, yeah.
That's a good story.
It was.
Not many kids.
No, I remember an incredible experience. I went to the shops one day, just grocery shopping with my little children. They're very cute and outgoing, and so they started chatting to this lovely older lady, and because she liked them, she grabbed out a bag of balloons and said, "Would you like a balloon?" And so they chose one. She said, "Oh, when Daddy gets home tonight, he can blow that up for you." And my little son, in all his innocence, turned and said, "Daddy's not at work, he's in jail."
Yeah, great.
And her face was just, she couldn't get out of there quick enough. She didn't know what to say. And
With Kairos, does Kairos support, give assistance to anyone regardless of the crime committed by their loved one?
Yes. We don't. It's more about the people who are looking to help or who are get inferred. It's like with Rachel's story, for example. You know, the fact that that her husband's now out and they're spending, their marriage is more secure than it was, is a wonderful testimony and a wonderful witness to a lot of people who it works the other way, as you mentioned before. And when you consider that the people inside, when most people think of criminal or inmate or prisoner, they immediately think mass murderer or sex offender or whatever.
Yeah.
When in fact 8 to 10% of people are in prison now for traffic offences.
Yeah.
You know, most people are serving less than 5 years in prison. They're just like us. You know, there's no difference to who and what are actually the people who are inside. It's
They just made a bad choice somewhere along the way.
yeah.
I'm very interested to learn that Kairos is also actively involved within the jails as well. So you're really tackling it from both sides, aren't you?
Kairos actually started inside the jail by a guy in America who was converted and went through a process of turning his life around. And he took it back into a jail system, and that's where it started in 1976. And so it's in 8 countries in the world, and we're in 16 jails in Australia. And it's very much there a case of working within the system under the authority of the Corrective Service Department and giving them the fact that they've got choices. They don't have to be on the same cycle.
Because it must be very difficult for anybody, regardless of the amount of time they've spent inside, to face coming outside again.
Absolutely.
Trying to pick up the pieces. It must be. I mean, what was your? Has your husband revealed to you how he felt about that?
we had a lot of support, which we're very thankful for. We're both involved in the Kairos community and the Kairos outside community, and I think that made a real difference for us. We had people that we could talk to who were a little bit further along in the journey, so they had advice and helpful things to tell us.
And Kairos has had extraordinary success in terms of lessening the repeat offenders.
Yeah, we've just had a recent study by the New South Wales Department of Corrective Services, and it showed that all other things being equal, people doing a Kairos course inside will actually reduce the recidivism or the reoffence rate by 30%. And that's not only that's
Good results, isn't it?
And we say every person that doesn't go back, it's a ripple effect to the families, the friends, the communities, as well as the fact it costs 55 to 75,000, etc.
But just on that, just finally talking about money, it must be you would need funding for Kairos to continue.
Yes.
But it must be very difficult to get funding because it's hardly your kind of feel-good story. Hey, can we have your money because we want to help prisoners?
It's not something you talk about.
Half the time when I'm actually going out and talking, it's actually telling what the true story of those we work with are really about. A bit of those statistics I talked before, because it's not a heartstring charity. It's saying how we are changing lives, and through changing lives, we are affecting families and communities and situations like Rachel's.
And I'm guessing probably part of your argument to get money is that you save money in the long run too.
Well,
So
it costs
the business, the sheer business,
It costs 55 to 75,000 to keep someone in prison, depending which state you're in. Plus, you've got court costs, police time, and costs. You've got the victim, you've got the stress on the society and the community they come from. So there is practical corporate responsibility and all those buzzwords, sort of reasons why it works. But yeah, we are in a situation where it's not a heartstring sort of position.
All right, look.
Lovely to meet you guys.
It's lovely to meet you both.
Nice to meet you
all the
too.
best.
Thanks for having
I
me.
bet the first night out of jail was pretty great.
Oh, it was incredible. We should talk about that.
I'll talk about that later. All right, thanks again. Ariane Spratt is ready and waiting at the cooktop. Back after this.